This happened a few years ago when I was renting a small place on the edge of town. The guy moved in next door about a month after I did. Mid-30s maybe. I don't even remember his name. At first, he seemed normal. The first weird thing was how often I saw him. I'd come home from work and feel like someone was watching me. You know that feeling where you suddenly become aware of your own movements? I'd turn my head slightly, and through the corner of my eye, I'd catch his curtain moving. When I looked directly, the window would already be dark. Maybe he just liked looking outside and I was being paranoid. At that time, I always used that excuse. Then small things started happening. I'd leave my trash bin outside, and the next morning it would be slightly moved, closer to his side of the fence. There was a moment when I forgot my keys in my car. When I went back outside to get them, my driver's door was already unlocked. I remembered locking it. Maybe I was forgetful, but deep down, I started checking doors and windows more often, especially at night. One evening, around 10:30, I was in my living room watching TV with the lights off. Then I noticed a light across the yard. His kitchen light was on. He was standing right behind his window facing my house. At first, I thought he was looking past it, but then I realized his head was tilted slightly downward toward my window. After a few minutes, his light turned off. I didn't sleep well that night. I started hearing footsteps outside my bedroom window late at night. When I checked, there was never anyone there. One morning, I found muddy footprints right below my window, but they weren't mine. I confronted him once at least. I tried to. I casually asked if he'd seen anyone around the houses at night. He smiled and said no, and held eye contact just a little too long. Then he said something that made me suspicious. He asked me if I lived alone. I lied and said no. That night, I heard slow knocks on my front door. I checked the peephole. The knocking started again, this time closer to my bedroom window. I didn't answer and didn't move. I sat on my bed, holding my phone. Maybe I was overreacting. Then I heard my neighbor's voice. He whispered my name. I had never told him my name. I called a friend and stayed on the phone until sunrise. When I checked outside in the morning, there were no footprints, no signs of anyone being there. But my window was unlocked. I know I locked it. A few days later, I came home early from work. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw something that still makes my skin crawl. My neighbor was standing inside my house, like he had frozen mid-step when he heard my car and his hand was still on my doorknob. We stared at each other. Then he smiled and walked back into his house, like nothing had happened. I called the police. They said there was no sign of forced entry, no evidence he'd actually gone inside. They told me to be careful and call again if it happened. The next morning, I went straight to the hardware store. I didn't even change clothes properly. I bought extra padlocks, thicker ones. I didn't care if it looked paranoid. I added locks to every door. Front door, back door, even the small door leading to the laundry area. Each one got an extra lock. Then I ordered CCTV cameras. I placed a camera facing the front yard, one at the back, one near the side fence, and one inside, pointing down the hallway toward my bedroom. That night, I sat on my bed watching the live feed on my phone. Around 10:30, I saw movement on the side camera. At first, it was just darkness shifting. Then, a shape stepped into view. It was him. He stood just outside the camera's range at first. He knew exactly where it stopped recording. He leaned forward until his face filled the screen. He wasn't smiling. His expression was calm, like this was normal for him. He raised his hand and waved. It was very creepy for me at that time. Then he stepped back out of view. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next few days were hell. Every time I checked the cameras, I expected to see him. Sometimes he'd just stand near the fence, staring at my house. Other times, he'd walk past like he was just taking a stroll. One night, I woke up to a notification sound from my phone. My hands were shaking as I unlocked my screen. The camera showed my back door, and the doorknob was moving, slowly turning, stopping, and turning again. Then, an eye appeared at the bottom of the frame. He was crouched down, looking directly into the camera. I screamed and called the police. By the time they arrived, they checked the area, took my statement, and told me to keep the footage. After they left, I sat alone in my locked house, surrounded by cameras. That same night, all my cameras went offline at once. I grabbed my phone and flashlight and locked myself in the bedroom. I could hear something here, outside. Then a voice, right outside my door, said that he doesn't like cameras. I didn't respond. I heard him walk away. The next morning, I left. I didn't pack properly. I took what mattered and stayed with a friend. Not long after that, I went back during the day with my brother to grab the rest of my things. While clearing out the bedroom, I noticed something carved into the inside of my closet door. I watch when you sleep. I moved out for good that day. I don't know what happened to him. I don't want to find out. I've been through a lot in my life, but this was one of the 2 worst experiences I've ever had. I was living in a small apartment complex back then. The unit across the hall became occupied a few weeks after I moved in. I didn't see anyone move furniture inside. I didn't hear any boxes, footsteps, or doors slamming. One day the unit suddenly wasn't empty anymore. At first, I didn't pay attention, but over time, I realized something felt off. I never heard anything from that apartment, not even at night. I started asking myself questions without realizing it. Was he even home? Was the unit actually occupied? The first time I saw him was late at night, around 10:30. I was walking down the hallway when I noticed movement near his door. It was slightly open. There was a figure standing behind it, barely visible. I remember slowing down, pretending not to notice. My heart started beating faster. Why wasn't he stepping out? Why was the door open like that? I unlocked my apartment and went inside, locking the door immediately. I stood there for a moment. His door was always open just a crack, always the same amount. Every morning when I left for work, it was like that. Every night when I came home, it hadn't changed. I started wondering how often he slept. Did he ever leave? Did he work? Did he even live like a normal person? When I passed by, I could feel his presence behind that door. Even without seeing him, I knew he was there. I never heard footsteps following me, but I also never heard him walk away. One night, I woke up suddenly for no reason. The apartment was dark and quiet. I noticed the sound coming from the hallway side of my door. I sat up in bed. Was someone standing outside? Was I imagining it? Why did it sound so close? I didn't check the door. I didn't move until morning. When I opened my door later, the hallway was empty, but my welcome mat had been flipped upside down. Did he come to my door last night? After that, the scratching began. It came from the wall behind my bed, like someone dragging their fingers slowly along the surface. It happened late at night when everything else was silent. I lay there staring at the ceiling. The scratches always stopped when I sat up. I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, I walked over to his door. It was still slightly open. I pushed it gently. The apartment was empty. There was no furniture, personal items, bed, just bare walls. The walls facing my apartment were covered in long scratch marks, all facing my side of the wall. Who had been scratching the wall every night? If no one lived there, then who was watching? I went back to my apartment and locked the door, then checked it again a few minutes later. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat on the edge of my bed, trying to process what I'd seen across the hall. I kept asking myself how that was possible. Sometime after midnight, I noticed the air in the room felt different. The silence was pressing in, but I'm trying to force myself to sleep. The scratching started again. This time, it was coming from my door. The scratching stopped. A few seconds passed, maybe more. I heard something shift on the other side of the door. Then I stared at the door. Had he followed me back after I checked the apartment? I pulled the blanket over my head, even though I knew how useless that was. I tried to tell myself it was my imagination spiraling. The next morning, I opened my door. There were no signs anyone had been there, but my door handle was turned slightly downward. I stood there staring at it, asking myself the same question over and over. If no one lived across the hall, then who stood outside my door that night? I moved out not long after. Even now, I still can't sleep well when I hear breathing or any unfamiliar sound. My hearing has become overly sensitive in quiet moments. This happened when I was 21 years old. I had just moved into my first place on my own. I didn't know anyone there, and honestly, I liked it that way. The man living next door noticed me almost immediately. He was in his early 50s, always dressed neatly and always outside watering his lawn, washing his car, checking his mailbox. Somehow, every time I stepped outside, he was there too. I told myself it was just a coincidence, but over time, I realized he was paying attention. He always seemed to know when I was leaving and when I was coming back. Some mornings, he'd already be outside before I opened my door. Other times, he'd step out after I pulled into the driveway. I started asking myself questions without meaning to. Did he watch the street all day? Did he keep track of my routine? Or was I just overthinking it? A few days after I moved in, he brought food over as a welcome gesture. I thanked him and went back inside. After that, the favors didn't stop. He'd bring my mail over if it ended up in his box and pull my trash cans back to the house before I got home. He'd mention small details about my day that I hadn't shared. He knew when I worked late. He knew when I took days off. He knew when I stayed home all afternoon. I hadn't told him any of that. At first, I tried to see it as kindness because he was older. Maybe he was lonely and just wanted to feel useful. Sometimes I'd come home and notice things slightly off. My porch light would be on when I was sure I'd turned it off. Was I forgetting? Was I just tired? I kept asking myself at that time. One night, I woke up suddenly with a strong feeling that someone had been inside my room, but I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was probably just the effect of my own fear. Nothing had actually happened. At least, that's what I believed at the time. After that, I paid more attention. A chair in my living room would be angled differently than I left it, and my shoes wouldn't be where I remembered placing them. There was one moment I came home earlier than usual. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw him doing something strange. Then he just walked back to his house, like it was nothing. The next day, I installed extra locks on every door and put cameras around the house. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to sound crazy. At first, the cameras showed nothing. Then one night, my phone buzzed. There was motion at my front door. I opened the feed and saw him standing there, facing the door, and stayed like that for several minutes. I watched and asked myself what he was waiting for. Eventually, he stepped back and walked away. I ended up asking a friend to stay over for a few nights, telling myself it was just for company. We were in the living room, trying to distract ourselves. I started to believe I really had been overreacting. Sometime after midnight, I went to the kitchen to get water and glanced out the window. He was standing in the dark, facing my house. I didn't wake my friend because I didn't want to sound paranoid. I went back to the living room and tried to act normal, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I heard slow footsteps on my porch. I looked at the cameras on my phone and it was him walking along the side of my house. He stood directly under my bedroom window and tilted his head slightly upward when the movement finally stopped. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, the ground beneath my bedroom window was disturbed. The grass was flattened, and someone had been standing there for a long time. I couldn't relax in my own house anymore. Even simple things like cooking or showering felt rushed. I was constantly being watched. My friend eventually went home. I knew I couldn't keep living like that. So one afternoon, when I saw him outside again, I decided to confront him, at least to make it clear that I was aware. I remember noticing how normal everything looked. No sense of danger on the surface. As I stood there, I told myself to stay calm, to not accuse him of anything directly. He listened quietly while I spoke and didn't interrupt. He didn't look offended, he just nodded slowly. There was no anger in his face, and no surprise either. But something felt wrong. A normal person would have reacted somehow, even mild defensiveness and confusion, but he seemed almost prepared. When I finished speaking, he gave a small smile and responded calmly. He explained it was just a misunderstanding. Nothing he said sounded threatening. As I walked back to my house, I felt exposed. I had shown him exactly how much I noticed and paid attention. That night was worse than the others. I noticed movement outside earlier than usual. Shapes passing by windows, shadows lingering just out of sight. I checked the cameras constantly, my phone battery draining faster than I could recharge it. The camera at the side of my house caught him standing still, facing the wall. I asked myself why he wasn't afraid of being seen anymore, why he seemed more comfortable than before. Then I heard slow footsteps again on the porch. I didn't check the door and didn't turn on the lights. The steps moved away eventually. The next morning, I noticed something that finally broke whatever denial I had left. There were subtle signs of someone testing the handle repeatedly. Talking to him made things worse. I understood then that this wasn't about misunderstanding or kindness. After that, I did everything I could to make sure he wouldn't come around anymore. I started inviting friends over almost every day. I didn't always tell them the full reason. I'd say I didn't like being by myself, and I was feeling uneasy living alone. When the house was full, the tension felt lighter. The cameras showed less movement. I thought maybe his interest had faded, but it hadn't. I noticed he only appeared when things were quiet again. On nights when my friends left early, on mornings when everyone had gone and the house felt empty, I started asking myself whether he was counting how many people came in and out, or he was memorizing faces. One night, I had 3 friends over. We stayed up late, talking and watching movies. Around midnight, I checked the cameras out of habit. He was at the edge of his property, standing near the fence line. I tried to act normal for the rest of the night. I laughed when I was supposed to. I responded when someone spoke to me, but inside I felt scared. After my friends left, I walked through the house, checking the front door, back door, and windows. I went to bed with the lights on. Sometime during the night, I woke up to the sound of movement outside, like fabric brushing against the wall. When I checked the cameras the next morning, I saw him walking along the side of my house in the early hours. He stopped briefly near the back door before continuing on. No one else had been there. No one else. Then, I started changing my routine, leaving at different times, coming home later or earlier than usual, parking in different spots. I wanted to see if it made a difference, but it didn't. He still seemed to know when I was home and alone. The worst part was how careful he was. He never did anything overt, never crossed a line. It was all just close enough to make me doubt myself. Was he actually doing anything wrong? Or was he just existing too close to me? I kept bringing people over, telling myself that as long as I wasn't alone, nothing could happen. But deep down, I knew I couldn't live like that forever, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was waiting for the day I stopped trying. After days of having friends over almost nonstop, the house was finally quiet again. I remember standing in the kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, and trying to convince myself that I was safe. Then, I checked the cameras like I always did. He wasn't anywhere I could see. That should have been a relief, but instead, it made me scared. Where was he? Had he finally stopped? I went to bed early and left a small lamp in the hallway. Then, I woke up with the unmistakable feeling of being observed. I heard a soft sound near the back of the house. I stared at the ceiling, my heart racing. Was it the wind? Was it the house settling? The sound moved from the back door to a window. I completely broke down. I was yelling and crying at the same time, asking what he wanted from me, why he wouldn't just leave me alone, why he kept watching and waiting. I remember shouting if he thought I was stupid, if he thought I wouldn't notice, if he really believed I wouldn't go to the police or show the recordings to everyone. My voice was shaking, my chest hurt, and all I could think was, how much longer was I supposed to live like this? The next morning, I packed my things while my hands were still shaking. I didn't even think about what I was leaving behind. None of it mattered. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house another night. I stayed with friends for a while. It took time before I could sleep without waking up in a panic. Even now, sudden noises still make my heart race. I don't know what happened to him after that. All I know is that leaving was the only way it could end. After that, I couldn't live alone anymore. I finally decided to rent a place with a friend. This happened a few years ago. I had just moved into a small rental house in a quiet neighborhood. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. My neighbor lived directly across from me, a middle-aged man. I don't remember ever seeing his car leave. Sometimes I'd notice him standing near his window when I came home late, but I told myself it was nothing. People look out their windows. That's normal. The first strange thing was the timing. Every night, around the same hour, the lights in his house would turn off one by one, and right after that, the light outside my porch would flicker, but I tried to ignore it. Then came the footsteps, always at night and stopping right in front of my door. If I was imagining it, why would anyone stand there without knocking? But the steps never stayed long, just a few seconds. Then they'd walk away. I noticed something else. Whenever my lights stayed on, his lights stayed on too. I started asking myself if he was watching my house, if he was paying attention to my routine, if he knew exactly when I was awake and when I was asleep. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I stayed awake on purpose. The footsteps came again, moved closer to my window. I tried calling my mom. She answered. She sounded worried when she heard how scared I was. I started explaining what was happening, my words coming out messy and rushed. But then something felt wrong. Her voice changed. Then she laughed. I remember pulling the phone away from my ear and staring at the screen. It was still her name. I hung up right away. Even now, I can still hear that laugh clearly. It didn't sound like her at all. After that, the light in my bedroom started flickering, turning off and on like someone was playing with the switch. I asked myself what was happening, whether the power was about to go out or if something else was doing this on purpose. Then I heard glass clinking, like someone gently tapping a cup against the counter. I remember wondering why it sounded so careful, why it didn't feel accidental at all, and how something like that could be happening when I was alone. I finally lost it. I started yelling, not even sure who I was yelling at anymore. I was asking what was going on. What did someone want from me? Why was this happening in my house? I kept looking around, wondering if someone was standing somewhere in the dark. I slowly walked toward the door because the handle wouldn't stop moving. Someone was actually trying to force it open, and all I could think was why it wouldn't stop. Why someone would keep doing that, knowing I was inside. My hands were shaking when I leaned closer. I didn't want to look, but I felt like I had to. So I checked through the peephole. He was right there, standing way too close to the door. He was smiling. That smile was horrifying. The longer I thought about it, the harder it became to breathe. My chest felt tight. I couldn't stand there anymore. I ran toward the back of the house, not even sure where I was going, just trying to put as much distance between me and the front door as possible. I could still hear the handle being forced over and over. He wasn't stopping. I rushed into another room and opened the closet, squeezing myself inside and quietly pulling the door shut. I stood there in the dark, barely breathing and listening to every sound. Then I heard the front door finally open, followed by footsteps inside the house. I stayed frozen in that closet, asking myself how this was real and whether he already knew exactly where I was hiding. At that point, my entire body was soaked in sweat. I was terrified to the point where it felt like my body didn't want to respond anymore. My arms and legs were tingling and numb. I remember thinking why my body wasn't moving when I needed it the most. I started crying quietly in the dark. I couldn't stop it and I had to cover my mouth with my hand, pressing it hard against my lips so no sound would come out. I stayed there like that, listening to the sounds of someone moving around inside my house, hoping he wouldn't come any closer to where I was hiding. I could see his legs slowly moving across the room. He walked toward my bed, stopping right beside it. He was checking whether I was hiding there. I squeezed my eyes shut as hard as I could. I pressed my hand tighter over my mouth. My whole body was shaking at that point. I felt dizzy, like I was about to pass out, but I forced myself to stay still. Then my phone vibrated, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I tried to turn it off, struggling with the screen. The vibration finally stopped. I tried calling my friend over and over, but he didn't pick up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I switched to texting, not even thinking anymore, just typing anything. The reply came immediately. "I know you're in the closet." The moment I read that, I covered my mouth and cried in silence, my whole body shaking. My chest felt tight, like breathing itself was a struggle. All I could think about was how badly I wanted this to be a dream. I kept hoping I'd wake up any second, that none of this was real. I finally looked through the crack in the closet again. I saw him staring straight at me. Then he smiled. Everything went black. I passed out right there inside the closet. I woke up the next morning on my bedroom floor. My friend had come over because I stopped replying. He said the house door was locked from the inside and nothing looked broken. I grabbed my phone right away. The call history looked normal. The message from the night before was gone. I still went to the police and told them everything. The neighbor, the noises, the phone call, and the text. They listened, wrote things down, and asked if I'd been stressed lately. They said they'd check it out, but they didn't really believe me. I went back to the house. I told myself I needed to calm down, and maybe I overreacted. When I walked in, my friend was there, sitting in the living room, and my neighbor was with him. They were talking like it was nothing, like they were comfortable around each other. That text from the night before hit me all over again. I could remember the words perfectly. I started asking myself how my friend even knew the neighbor in the first place. When did they meet? How long had they been talking? The longer I stood there, the harder it was to move. But when I turned back around, my friend was standing there alone. The neighbor was gone. I asked him where the neighbor had gone. He asked me who I was talking about. I told him the neighbor had been standing right next to him, and that's when his expression changed. He looked confused and said he'd been alone the entire time. He swore no one else had come into the house. I asked again, thinking maybe he was messing with me, but he kept insisting there was no one else there. At that point, I didn't know what to believe anymore. I told him I needed to be alone and asked him to leave. He didn't argue, but he looked worried when he walked out. As soon as I was alone, I checked the CCTV. I replayed the footage over and over. There was no one entering the house, and my friend sitting there by himself. I really started to feel like I was hallucinating. I couldn't trust my own memory anymore. So I booked a flight. I just packed some clothes, grabbed what I could, and left the house behind. Even now, I still think about how clear everything was in my head. After I left, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. It kept replaying in my head, especially at night. I started looking things up online, just trying to make sense of it all. I kept wondering if everything I went through was just my mind messing with me, maybe stress. I didn't want to assume anything, so I decided to talk to a professional because I needed help dealing with the fear and confusion. I still don't know what really happened in that house, but getting help was the only thing that made me feel like myself again.